It's gonna be this way.
Swim so free.
The Capitol Hill to
Soccer bopper. Just a good old boy. Never meaning no harm.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tune In Next Week. I am your co-host, Brian, and with me is my co-host, John. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, man, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Hey, Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. It is the new year. It's 2016. It's a new year, new episode, new possibilities.
And Happy New Year to all you fine people as well.
Yes.
And speaking of fine people, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the folks at JB Recording. We've become their resident podcast. So JB Recording is the studio where we're actually doing our podcast recording. So I just want to say thanks to the guys over there, and thanks to everybody all over the internet listening to us here, iTunes, SoundCloud, Reddit. Really appreciate you guys checking us out on YouTube as well. So thanks very much for that. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at tunein_nextweek, Tumblr tunein-nextweek.tumblr.com, and then everywhere we're tunein_nextweek. So definitely thanks for checking us out.
It's good to have a home.
It is, absolutely. And what are we doing this week?
This week's episode is the Dukes of Hazzard. This is the episode High Octane. It's season 1, episode 5. This is a really fun episode. I had a lot of fun watching this.
Yeah, this one was cool.
Yeah, it came out February 23rd, 1979, directed by Don McDougall, written by, is it Guy or is it Guy?
I'm going to go with Guy.
Guy Waldron.
It's spelled Guy without the U, so like capital G, lowercase y, and that's it. So I'm going to go with Guy.
Guy. We'll call him Guy.
Yeah.
This is probably the only time we're going to reference him, though.
That's true.
Well, this show, like a couple other shows we've covered recently, like Star Trek and other similar shows, you'll have a show written by the creator, or the creator will be credited as a writer, and then you'll have a whole cast of other writers.
Yep.
This is one of those episodes. Is credited to Guy Waldron, and then there are a couple other people that have writing credits on here also.
Yeah. And where can one watch the Dukes of Hazzard?
Well, several places. You can purchase or rent on iTunes. You can also do Amazon Instant Video. And there are DVDs for purchase as well as VHS. You found a VHS copy in your travels, did you not?
I did, and it's nice to see some things are still available on that vintage format. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I saw a VCR for sale in Target or anywhere. I mean, I'm sure you can buy them still, but you can still order VHS tapes, and one such tape would be a single episode of this here High Octane from the Dukes of Hazzard. So, and I actually saw individual episode reviews on Amazon. People really were touting this as a great episode, one of the best of the series. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Let me at that Betamax, though. That reel-to-reel format.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, there's nothing like good Betamax. It's like the 8-track of video. Whatever happened to Laserdisc, man? Like, Laserdisc I thought was so cool. I mean, like giant vinyl record-sized discs.
Yeah, wasn't that the forerunner to just CDs, DVDs in general?
Yeah, I mean, that was the very first optical media. Then you had to, the problem is they didn't have enough room on one side in order to have everything, so you had to flip it over in the middle of the movie. So, I mean, I think they one-upped it with DVDs, that's for sure.
It came and went like
the General Lee.
Yep. Oh, man. All right. So, yeah, I've got nothing more to start us off. You got anything?
Well, what about our little plot synopsis?
Oh, the plot synopsis.
That's right. So this episode, High Octane, goes a little something like this. The boss, Hogg, gets Uncle Jesse to enter a contest for a new type of fossil fuel with a prize of $20,000, saying that moonshine would be the perfect way to cut down on pollution. But Boss Hogg has more up his sleeve. He plans to tip off the authorities, and once Jesse and his nephews are arrested, he's going to take credit for the idea himselse.
Cool.
So with that, let's jump into it.
All right. So this show opens up with 2 sets of previews. Opening shot, it's a acoustic guitar. Somebody playing acoustic guitar.
That's the intro.
That is the intro.
That's the introduction to the whole show.
Right. They do it twice.
Do they?
They do it twice. So it opens up with the acoustic guitar, and then they do a shot of previews of the episode we're about to watch.
Right.
Then they show a shot of an acoustic guitar playing, and then they do the opening credits.
Right.
It was inexplicable.
Okay.
Why so many acoustic guitar shots? But I get it.
That's okay. But I have to say, this is I think this is the first show that neither of us really know.
Yeah.
Because we've done Knight Rider, we've done Star Trek, we've done Airwolf. These are shows that Brian and I have had more familiarity with. This is really the first one that we don't have a ton of familiarity with. So this is certainly going to be interesting.
There were shows like Knight Rider that you were more into,
right?
Frasier, things like that. This one show though, neither of us have any. I'm just repeating.
That's okay.
I'm just repeating.
You got that new job in the Department of Redundancy Department. Sorry, that was terrible.
No, it was
we may edit that out.
We'll pass judgment later.
Yeah, okay. So we have our intro, and then we cut to the first scene in the episode, which is basically the General Lee flying over. We're talking Knight Rider Kit Turbo Boost style, flying right over this parked truck and having a really hard landing. I mean, just smashing right down on the center of the body itself. And
you forgot about the Yahoo.
Oh, well, it's funny. I kind of tune those out after a while because, like, every 5 seconds there's like, in the episode somewhere. So I just kind of tuned them out. But you're right. There was a bunch of that. But this car gets the shit beaten out of it. I mean, even in this one episode, but I'm sure in every episode, the car gets the absolute shit kicked out of it. And I mean, I've never driven the way that these guys drive, or I've never jumped that way. But I mean, when you're coming down, you was probably a good 15 feet in the air, 15, 20 feet in the air.
Easy.
Landing flat down. I mean, like the wheels didn't do a damn thing. I mean, he hit the undercarriage of the frame right down on the ground. I don't think there's any way to survive that.
No.
But they just kept on driving.
They had to have wrecked a ton of these cars during the tapings of these shows.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I mean, and then later on, you see where these guys are going. They're going to meet up with Uncle Jesse, who's down at like the courthouse. So presumably, Bo and Luke Duke are wearing nicer clothes and whatnot, but they're driving like bats out of hell.
But there's narration also.
Right.
There's narration that's
the balladeer.
The balladeer.
Waylon Jennings.
Who is Waylon Jennings?
Famous musician.
Okay, I assume he's a country music musician.
Yes.
Okay.
Yet another thing that I feel like we're giving people reasons to shut the podcast off. So I don't. Please don't. I mean, you get to listen to two Northeast white boys talk about good old boys in this podcast. So I mean, there's got to be some entertainment value here.
Right. So the boys show up to the courthouse. They meet up with Uncle Jesse. They go into the courthouse, and on their way in, they see a flyer out front, and the flyer says, "Hey, there is an energy contest. Rewards $20,000 if you come up with something that saves energy, low pollution, that kind of thing. Hey, you win the cash prize." So Luke Duke. Is it Luke Duke? It's Luke Duke.
Luke and Bo, yeah. So Bo and Luke are like, hey, we could do this, and I can't remember if it wasn't at that point that they decided they knew what fuel to use. I'll just put that in quotes. Mm-hmm. I don't think they knew what fuel they wanted to use. I think they just saw the idea and they were like, hey, this is a cool idea.
Yeah.
And then they said, okay, well, we got to go. We got a meeting. So they go inside and they're expecting to see, I guess they're going to speak to like a money handler or like a county treasurer kind of thing.
Is that what she is?
Yeah, they mentioned her title a few times in the episode, and I just
revenue officer.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, so they went to see a revenue officer, and I'm assuming it's tax collector or something, and because they made some kind of an oath or a promise to report on a monthly basis to this guy that was there, and now you find out it's this woman named, was it Huntley?
Roxanne Huntley. So you find out she's the new replacement for whichever the guy was that was there before, and they have to introduce themselves to her, and they say, hey, we're the Duke family, and we're coming here for our monthly report, and blah blah blah. She pulls up their file, and this is where we learn that Bo's real name is Beauregard. And I was like, Bo, just Bo.
Yeah, and he's adamant that he gets called Bo. I mean, like that's his goal in life is, to make sure that no one calls him Beauregard.
Well, she was shocked, and I frankly was shocked as well to find out that the deal they made with a revenue officer of the court was, hey, we'll stop making moonshine if you guarantee our freedom, and we'll come and check in monthly. Now, the fact that they made a deal with the U.S. government, well, the U.S. government makes deals all the time, but this particular type of deal is just kind of sounds unusual to me. Now, I could be wrong because of my ignorance of the judicial system.
Sure.
But this just seems like a weird kind of deal for the government to make.
Right, because they're being pardoned on these, federal laws of not transporting moonshine and making moonshine and all that other stuff. But the county people are the ones that are enforcing it. So who is their deal really with? Is their deal with the county people, with the federal people? It's a big gray area, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm certainly not very familiar with the judicial system in that regard, but it seemed like something that was like it seemed like it was plot putty.
Yeah.
It was like something to just fill in a hole in a plot.
That's a very good way to put that.
It's plot putty.
She's the county revenue officer, or
Right.
is she a federal revenue officer?
She said later on in the episode that she was a federal officer.
Right.
So is she a federal revenue officer, or didn't she say she was ATF?
I don't think she said ATF.
But later on in the episode, I could have sworn she said she was ATF when she was going to arrest them. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but
yeah.
Anyway, so she's a revenue officer. She's the replacement for the guy. Let's stay on track.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. So basically, then we find out that for their freedom, they don't make the moonshine, they don't transport it, and the law doesn't mess with them. So whatever, fine. So Jesse and the gang, they're like, okay, we've checked in, we're good, we're out of here. And as they're leaving, Rosco walks in and he's like, hey, your taillight's out.
Mm-hmm. And just blusters at them. Oh, you Duke boys, I better not catch you on that freeway.
He's like the typical old grandpa.
Yeah.
He's like, when the old grandpa comes in, the one that lives out of town, you only see once a year. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of walks in. He's like, the one that's going to squeeze your cheek and whatnot, but except he's a prick.
Yeah. His ignorance and low IQ offends everyone. Everyone in the room. So he blusters at the Duke boys. They're like, oh, yeah, whatever, Rosco. And they leave. And then he
has zero credibility.
None.
I mean, he could be wearing a clown outfit or his police uniform. It doesn't make a difference. They don't take him seriously at all.
He warrants disrespect by wearing that police officer's uniform.
His deputy Enos, which I can't stand that name. I think that's such a terrible name because it sounds too much like something else. But that guy commands a lot more respect than he does, and even still, he comes across like a bumpkin. So
yeah,
like those two guys they don't have any. They don't command respect as law enforcement agents.
No, I had nothing but disrespect for them while watching the show.
I just looked at them and laughed.
So he's in the office, and he again, his ignorance and low IQ offends Officer Huntley. And he says all kinds of stuff about, I don't trust them, and
he's got some bug up his ass because he assumes that whenever the Dukes are out, they're up to no good. Mm-hmm. And Huntley is obviously like, you need to calm down. They're not doing this. They see him out the window, and one of them's holding a whole big coil of copper pipe, mm-hmm. and he's like, they're going to brew moonshine, blah 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 blah. Which, I mean, yes, they are, but they don't know that. We don't know that.
You're not assuming positive intent. You're just saying, look at that copper tubing. I know you're doing bad.
Right. It's like when somebody goes to the store and they buy a pack of condoms. So it's like, you're going to go home and have some sex, aren't you? And like, no, maybe I'm making an art project.
Yeah, maybe I'm filling these up with dyed red corn syrup and using them as squibs for my movie that I'm doing. Or I just reached out and just pulled that out of the air.
I was going to make a similar reference, but you should assume positive intent here with these people, because you never know. I mean, he could have been doing some kind of irrigation thing for his crops. Who knows?
This guy is so jaded and so world weary and ignorant that he just assumes everybody is in the wrong here.
Right. So now everybody leaves and Cooter was out. Cooter just randomly showed up and fixed their brake light.
Cooter,
I thought was so nice of him.
Very nice of him, but Cooter.
He just randomly showed up. I have no idea who this guy is, but it seems like he's a friend of everybody. He's people's pal. Yeah. And he just sort of showed up out of nowhere and was laying underneath the General Lee fixing the brake light. Now, how he knew that, I don't know. I mean, I highly doubt Bo and or Luke whipped out their cell phone and called Cooter.
I imagine...
Oh, wait. This is 1979. They didn't have cell phones. I'm sorry.
I imagine a world where Cooter is so...
He's omnipresent.
Infatuated with the Dukes that he's following them around. He's across the street, watches them pull in, and just takes it upon himself to just roll underneath and fix that tail light.
Exactly. I'll take that. That sounds good.
So the Dukes do confirm during this Cooter scene that they are using the copper tubing for the still. They drive off and they go back to the ranch or
well,
the
they
farm.
meet up with Boss Hogg first.
They do. There's a scene where Uncle Jesse is upset at a gas station attendant or a truck driver over 3 gallons. This guy's acting to so Uncle Jesse is like, "Why is it 3 gallons?" And the guy was just like, "Well, the truck doesn't come every day like it used to. Now it comes once a week."
It reminds me of when I forget the guy's name. I think it's Orlando Jones in Office Space when he goes when he's trying to sell the magazine subscription. And he's like, "I am trying to sell magazine subscriptions. I do not know anything about money laundering."
I don't remember that.
That deadpan look. Okay,
it's been a long time since I've seen Office Space.
I do not know anything about no money laundering. That's what I thought about when I saw that guy. But I agree with you. His acting was pretty terrible. But then we're over at Boss Hogg, and I think they're at like a barbecue joint or something. It's just some place, and this is where Boss Hogg is kind of dropping his master plan on everybody and trying to convince Uncle Jesse to make his moonshine and whatnot. No, I just got this sleazy vibe from Boss Hogg, and I mean, I have a feeling that most of what Boss Hogg does is just try to connive money out of people. And, I think Boss Hogg should be on Shark Tank.
Weekly schemer.
Right.
So yeah, and he's very obtuse. He's just and he talks in an exaggerated country drawl.
Everyone on the show does, dude.
Yeah, they do. But him especially. And what did it for me was when he said, "Jesse, remember that time? Remember that time you made your whiskey and you ran out of gas and you put your whiskey in your gas tank and you ran your car off that? I want you to do that again for this competition, and it's for you. I'm not interested in the $20,000 prize money. I'm interested in the royals." The royals? What do you mean the royals? And Luke is like, well, he means royalties. So that kind of...
Yeah, but when someone says, "Hey, $20,000 is at stake," for someone to go, "Oh, I'm not interested in $20,000. What are you, Donald Trump?"
Yeah.
I mean, $20,000 would be chump change to him. But like, I mean, these are good old boys that live in the middle of nowhere. So like, 20 grand would be, they'd be sitting pretty with 20 grand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
with Boss Hogg, I feel like he uses 20 grand to like buy a soda or something. That's the equivalent to you and me.
True. So he's obviously, he's trying to convince Uncle Jesse to do this, and I think he's successful, because Uncle Jesse, basically the next thing you see is everybody walking up to this big structure in the middle of the woods.
Yes, and this was funny to me because they're like, "Oh, this is our hidden still." And granted, the still was covered with a tarp, and it was covered with leaves and things like that.
It was well camouflaged.
Well camouflaged still, except for the roof over it. It was a four posts that were put into the ground, and across those posts were wooden slats. So it had almost like a roof over it. Now, if I were out looking for a still and I walked by and saw like a big brush and leaves and sticker bushes everywhere, I wouldn't be digging around in there unless I saw a roof-like structure over top of it. Then, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, because then it's obvious. It's almost like a little hut around the object, and it's like something secret is being, hidden here. Keep walking, whatever, pay no attention to this. But the fact that there's a structure over this means that now it's drawing attention to it.
Screams at me.
It's kind of completely. It's completely ignoring the purpose of masking it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that's a good point.
They brush off the still. They fire it up, and the next scene is Boss Hogg obtusely explaining to Sheriff Rosco the plan, but Rosco not really getting it because Boss Hogg is using just using he and they and not being specific about who he's talking about. I guess assuming Rosco knows.
Yeah.
But Rosco really doesn't get the picture until he walks outside, hears a big boom, and then Boss Hogg comes out and is like, oh, there he is. Jesse's firing up a still just like I knew he would. And then without really missing a beat, Rosco seems to put it together and like, oh, Jesse's out there making whiskey again. And then we cut back to the still itself. And Cooter blew up the still.
Well, he blew up something else because they said, "Thank goodness you blew this up and not the still."
Right,
so
right.
He blew up some
probably the vats that had the mash in it.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
covered in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even still, that loud boom that we heard from a distance, I would imagine would have, if not killed Cooter, it would have deafened him.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it certainly blew their cover for sure. I mean, because if they're trying to work out this, trying to work out some, covert stuff, and now there's a giant ass boom that probably everybody in Hazzard County heard.
Right.
Way to be conspicuous there.
Fucking Cooter. So then we see this fisherman wandering through the woods. Fisherman in full fisherman gear, the typical vest and the bucket hat,
which I have to say looked like it had come right off the retail rack.
It was brand new,
brand spanking new,
new everything.
Yeah,
and so this fisherman walking through the woods stumbles over fishing wire that was kind of like a trap.
Yeah, I thought this was brilliant. I mean, I hesitate to use the term redneck engineering, but it looks like that's what it was. It was a proximity alarm. Mm-hmm. It was a tripwire that was hooked up to a bunch of empty bottles and cans, so that way when this person walked across the thing, it made them rattle,
yes.
And it clued in the people over by the still that there's somebody lurking in the shadows.
Right. So at this point, I'm still thinking, this is just looking at the fisherman. Oh, this guy just stepped over the, alerted the Dukes to it. The Dukes are going to out to get him. And then he walks a bit closer, and then I'm like, oh, that's a woman. And it's a fisherman hat with a gray wig and glasses. And I was convinced that it was, the disguise was good. The disguise fooled me. But then the Dukes called him and brought him in, and upon closer inspection, when the camera got up close, oh, well, that's Huntley,
Roxanne Huntley,
the girl from the courthouse,
the revenue officer,
which totally goes against everything that she said to Rosco. Oh, these Dukes are trustworthy. Don't worry about the Dukes. They're not doing anything out of the ordinary. Just so what? They're buying copper tubing. Well, you're as untrustworthy as everybody else.
Right.
Dressing up in disguise and trying to come out here and spy on these people.
And how in the world did she get tipped off about that? Unless she just had those reservations to begin with.
Well, yeah. I would. She didn't talk to Rosco. She didn't talk to anybody. She just decided to put on a fisherman's outfit and go wandering through the woods.
Because that sounds like a good thing to do.
Okay, yeah. Now she found them because of the big boom.
Right.
I mean, I can get behind that. But why are you even out there? So she goes up there. She smells fire. She goes to the still. She smells it. Immediately passes out.
Right, but then she she comes to and she has this line that I wrote down. You're making moonshine and I have orders to nail you.
Orders from who?
No one knows. But when a woman says I have orders to nail you, I mean, I would think that those guys would have taken that and run with it, or, you know.
Yes, please. I am ready to be nailed. You want to nail me to this tree over here? Be my guest.
Oh, yeah. So obviously they're in a bit of a predicament now because she's there and she's caught them in the act, and she apparently didn't realize that, you know, sniffing the spout right where the moonshine comes out is probably not a good idea because it's so concentrated. It's such a high, you know, it's so strong. It knocked her right out. Right.
And then Bo has one of my favorite lines in the show, give her mouth-to-mouth recreation. And then Luke says, don't you mean resuscitation? And Bo is like, kind of the same thing. Because she's cute. She's a cutie.
For 1979.
For 1979.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't even say 1979. I mean, I'm seeing her today and I'm saying she's cute.
Yeah. This is 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so she comes to and they say, okay, well, you know, they give her the mouth-to-mouth. And they're like, okay, well, you know, obviously we have a little problem here. They say, hey, you know, we propose a truce. You know, you hang out with us for 24 hours, you let us do our thing, and then if you catch us afterwards, we win, or you win, and if not, we win.
They're bargaining with her.
Right.
They're bargaining with her, who knows they made a deal with the government already, knowing that she caught them red-handed. She just needs to. She just needs to
arrest them and bring them in.
Yeah.
But what also really confused me here was not only did they bargain with her, but then they said, "Come and stay with us."
Right.
So not
strangers.
Yeah. So not only are we bargaining with you and saying, "Hey, you know, give us 24 hours and get, you know, be cool with us, and then you can pursue us or whatever." We're going to invite you into our home. We're going to let you, you know, hang out with our family, and you're going to be all around us for this entire time. And then during that time, after that time, if you catch us, I mean, like, that's like, that doesn't make any sense.
No. And she agrees.
Yeah.
She agrees.
Which, that makes no sense either.
No, are you not a police officer? Or a revenue officer? What the hell is the difference?
Who knows?
She's got a badge. She's got a gun.
Yeah.
Let's just, for the sake of argument, call her a glorified IRS agent.
Sure.
She's carrying a gun.
She's packing.
Heat.
Yes.
Heavy heat.
Right.
And anyway, so she agrees.
Stupidly.
I guess.
Yeah.
And then she goes down and the next scene is Rosco and Hogg walking around in the woods in camouflage looking for the Dukes.
Wait. Rosco and Hogg are wearing full camo gear, walking down a road in the middle of the woods with like the longest shotguns you could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I mean, I don't know much about guns, but I mean, I would think that they could have been carrying something a little bit more conspicuous. But I mean, those guns were probably as tall as them.
Rosco is the sheriff.
Right.
And who is Hogg?
Some businessman.
Why are they walking together looking for the Dukes together?
Bo and Luke come screaming around the corner in the General Lee. They spot Rosco and Hogg a mile away. They're like, oh, it's Rosco and Hogg in disguise. You know, because who else would be walking around with, you know, mile-long shotguns?
Right.
You know, in the middle of a road trying to be all conspicuous. So they you know, run them off the road and run them into the river, which I thought was great. I totally would have done the same thing.
So instead of Rosco communicating with Huntley, who he works in the same office as, hey, I'm going to be out looking for these Duke boys. Are you going to be here in the office in case I need you? He just goes out with the local business tycoon,
right,
and goes hunting.
I mean, and as if the local business tycoon didn't have anything else to do. Did he have any phone calls to make, deals to close? You know, no, he's just going to go take a walk in the woods
and
with a cop. You know? Yeah.
So the next scene is Huntley taking a bath in a tub in a stranger's home.
Yeah.
who she was going to arrest their cousins.
Yes. Yeah. Let's let that marinate for a minute. The woman who's going to arrest them is now naked in a wash basin in the middle of their kitchen.
You can't get more vulnerable than that.
Yeah. And then Daisy's talking to her and everything, and they're talking like they're best girlfriends.
Yeah. I mean, Daisy does a good job of explaining the rationale. Well, we're just folks trying to do what we need to do. I can't hold it against you guys for trying to do your job. You're doing your job. You're people just like you and me. So yeah, no hard feelings. You try to arrest us. All right. That's what you're paid to do. That's your job. We're just going to keep on trying to avoid you. Do you want some tea? You want some coffee? Can I get you anything?
Yeah. I mean, can I get you anything like, my cousins in handcuffs? I mean, like, okay. But then Bo shows up and he's like, hey, I brought you something to wear. And of course it's like this black negligee. And I was like, okay, now in addition to this woman taking a bath in the stranger's kitchen, now she's being given a present of a negligee.
Right. Well, I could see the joke behind that.
Yeah.
Daisy wasn't really into that. Hey, get out of here. Get her some real clothes. Blah, blah, blah. We're gonna take you jukin' tonight.
Right.
Which is code for the narrator put it pretty in a pretty funny way.
Something like exercising, drinking, and eating or something.
Social intercourse.
Yeah,
social intercourse.
It was basically they just went to a bar and they were dancing and drinking.
Yeah, dancing and drinking.
Yeah. Which actually that sounds like fun.
Yeah. I enjoy all of those activities.
That's right. So we're just gonna end the podcast now. We're gonna go juke and see ya.
Yeah. Later, guys. Tune in next week.
Yeah. No, just kidding. Anyway, okay, so they go out juking, and they're at the local watering hole, and Bo and Roxanne are dancing, doing their thing, and you could definitely see that Roxanne is looking a little toasted.
Yes, there is a trick that Bo is employing where he is drinking water and he is ordering moonshine for her. And
who is the waitress, by the way?
The waitress was Daisy Duke.
Of course.
Daisy Duke.
And remember those yells you were talking about?
Oh,
there's a ton of that here.
There were, I think, three or four. There were about 3 or 4 different yells in this scene alone.
Right.
So
and they were happening off camera, so we have no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
We don't even know what people were yelling about.
Somebody took a shot and...
Yeah.
And somebody did a sick dance move.
You know what? Whatever it was, I'm sure it was awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're dancing, and while Bo and Roxanne are dancing on the floor, on the dance floor, Luke and the deputy Enos are talking at the bar, and this is where Enos helps himself to Bo's drink and says, "Oh, that's water." So yeah, it's water. Mind your own business. So Luke and Enos are talking about Roxanne, and Luke's like, "Oh, Bo's not serious. If you're into her, I'll introduce you to her." And Enos is like, "Yeah, I'm really want you to introduce me to Roxanne." So then
he's basically pimping her out. Yeah.
For information though, Enos lays out the plan. How Enos knows what Rosco and Boss Hogg are planning is, I mean, obviously there was some off-camera communication that's gone on.
Right.
But why is this off-camera communication happening between Rosco and Enos, but not happening between Roxanne or, I don't know, anyone else?
Yeah, it seems like nobody wants to clue anyone else in. You know, they just want to keep everybody guessing.
Right.
They want to keep the information secret so that they have to split the $20,000 with as few people as possible.
I guess. Are they splitting it with Rosco? Or I don't think Rosco's too dumb to even realize that that's a chip that he could play.
I doubt I highly doubt that occurred to him.
Well, anyway, exposition happens at the bar, and as a result of the juking and the dancing, the next scene is Luke and Bo dragging Roxanne, passed out Roxanne into their house.
Not even dragging, carrying.
Carrying, yes.
She was completely gone.
This with the way they did this makes me think this is something that they've done before, but not. They got her drunk to make her pass out for an extended period of time, so Uncle Jesse can make the moonshine without being watched.
But if they made this deal with her for 24 hours of freedom, then why did they need to go through this? Why didn't, there was no trust involved there?
Did she assume that it's Bo and Luke who are making the shine?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because she's out hanging out with them, so she was just going to be like, all right, well, I'll party with you guys, and I'll try to catch you tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, she must have been wondering what Uncle Jesse was up to, but that was very well downplayed.
Well, she was getting drunk.
True.
The fact that they got her out to the bar, they got some drinks into her, they got her to the point where she's dancing and distracted. I can understand why she's not thinking about Jesse, but
all she's thinking about is out drinking Bo.
Out drinking Bo.
Right.
Maybe getting a little bit of that Bo herself.
I have a feeling that thought had crossed her mind. She looked like she was a little googly-eyed at sometimes.
Oh yeah. So anyway, they drag her into the house, or carry her in the house, and after this, what happens next?
Then we're pretty much outside, and you see Bo and Luke are loading up the back of the General Lee with the jugs.
Well, okay, no, this in the morning they go out, and Uncle Jesse comes back from the cooking.
That's right.
He comes back from the cooking. He
unveils.
Yes.
Unveils his moonshine mobile. This black, all black. I don't know what kind of car it was. Was
it another Charger?
No. It's some sedan.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely not the same kind of car as the General Lee. But it was Jesse's decked out. Jesse's moonshine runner, and he's kind of talking to the boys a little bit, and then he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna they're saying, well, where do you hide it? And he's like, that's the most important part, and then he just kind of drives off like a badass.
Right.
And then I think we see them loading up the back of the General Lee with the jugs. The jugs,
yeah. And Roxanne just comes out from behind the tree. They are Bo and Jesse. I like this little jug flip that Bo does. He's got one of the jugs. He's polishing it, and without looking, just flips it up over his shoulder. And Luke, without almost not even looking, just catches it and puts it in the back of the trunk.
Right. Now, what I find funny is that Roxanne shows up with her gun drawn, ready to make the arrest.
Hungover as hell.
I was going to say, where was her hangover?
Oh,
she did not look like she was hungover at all.
You could maybe argue that you could see it a little bit in her eyes and a little bit in her hair, but demeanor, no, she was sharp.
She was all business.
All business.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. With how much moonshine she drank, and I've never drank moonshine, but I know moonshine can be really strong. I was surprised that she was vertical at that time of the morning.
I've had a lot of different kinds of moonshine. The straight up moonshine is if you have good kinds, it's easy to drink. The flavored kinds, though really good, heartburn.
Really?
All kinds of heartburn, at least for me.
Because you're drinking just raw alcohol, essentially.
Yeah.
Grain alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Or corn alcohol, I mean.
Either way.
Yeah. But, how the hell was she vertical? I mean, or maybe she's got a high tolerance. Maybe she can really hold it.
Well, the way she was bragging at the bar, if you're going to brag that hard on a dude that's probably 50, 60 pounds heavier than you.
Oh, at least.
I would say, all right, this girl she's that confident. I'm sure she can bring it.
Right.
But then, they play the trick on her. But even still, she drank herself under the table.
She totally did.
Which to me seems like a heroic amount of moonshine.
Yeah.
The kind of moonshine that would put someone like John Bonham down.
Right. And what is a law officer doing drinking moonshine with people she's trying to arrest?
Cavorting with known shiners.
Making moonshine.
Known shiners.
Like, I don't know.
Anyway,
so now she's arresting them, and then I think we go over to Roscoe's checkpoint.
yes.
His first one.
So she arrests them, gets in the back of the car. They drive up to Roscoe's first checkpoint. Roscoe catches them, comes up to the car and is like, I see all y'all, you Duke boys, you got that shine, I know you got it. And
they just give themselves up and they let Roscoe arrest them.
well, hang on. She is in the car with her gun drawn, and she's like, hey, this is a federal issue. I've got these boys under arrest.
Right.
I got this.
But now this brings a question. In terms of like jurisdiction, do federal agents often supersede the local jurisdiction?
I think it depends on the case, but in this instance, she said she's federal, right?
She did, yeah, on multiple occasions.
Okay, so she's federal.
Right.
How can she be arrested then by Roscoe, who's just a county sheriff?
He couldn't arrest her.
I would say no. Even if she was IRS or whatever revenue officer she was.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. I mean, not without creating a big problem in Washington and everything, and he can probably arrest her right in the moment, but he'd have no grounds to hold her.
No, I would say not.
He could arrest her and detain her for a brief amount of time, I would think, but I'd be interested to see what someone listening to this, if you have any clarity on what the actual legitimate laws are. I mean, I'd be interested to see what that entails, but anyway, so they get taken away. Roscoe takes them away, and then Roscoe, of course, just goes helps himself to the trove of jugs of moonshine in the back of the General Lee, and then he runs off into the woods to find Boss Hogg hiding somewhere else, to which he delivers the 2 jugs of moonshine to Boss Hogg.
And then Hogg drives off, but doesn't go towards he doesn't go towards the contest yet. Roscoe sets up another checkpoint, and then Jesse comes by.
Right.
And once Jesse comes by, and Jesse's been thoroughly detained, then Boss Hogg is like, all right, the Dukes are getting locked up. Jesse's been detained. I'm out of here on the way towards the competition.
Right.
Meanwhile, back at the station, the Dukes are getting locked up with Officer Huntley.
Right, with
They're
Roxanne.
getting with Roxanne. Enos is locking them up. Just as Luke knocks the jug over.
Right, and then of course everybody's freaking out because now there's moonshine all over the floor. Or is there?
Is there? Bo does this badass trick. He pulls a match out and lights it with his thumb.
Right.
And is like holding the match over the ground. Is like, you guys really don't want to arrest us now. You guys get on in there.
Right, so he locks Enos and Roxanne up in the jail cell, and they're like, don't drop the match, and he drops the match, and the match just kind of peters out because you find out that in that jug was not moonshine, but just good old water. Yep. So they pulled a fast one on those guys.
High quality H2O.
That's right. Now they're like, okay, well, we got to get over to the the contest because they want to see the look on Boss Hogg's face when this all goes horribly wrong.
Jesse is all like, Roscoe, you can't find anything in my car. Put it back together now so I can be on my way.
Because at this point, just for clarification, at this point, you're looking at like the car is practically gutted and it's, in a pile of parts on the side of the road.
Yeah. You've got I think the back seat is all ripped out.
Oh, yeah.
They've got engine parts all over the place. They're looking all over for this shine.
And it's not a drop is there.
Can't find it anywhere.
Right. And Roscoe is annoyed as hell, and Roscoe's like, oh, it's clean as a whistle, or whatever he said. And that's when Jesse's like, okay, well, you need to put this car back the way it was, or I'm going to sue the county.
Yeah.
And he's like, you wouldn't. And, Roscoe's like, put it back together the way you found it, and so he's obviously off the hook.
Yeah.
And then I think we were heading over to we head over to Boss Hogg at the competition.
It looks like a high school science fair.
Completely.
It's a bunch of booths that are set up. Now, granted, this may be what it's like in real life,
or what it was like in 1979.
Maybe that's what it was like in '79. But this is
For a prize of $20,000, it seemed like they didn't even spend $500 setting the place up.
They're setting the tone with the first one because the judge comes around with the other people, and it's like, oh, what can you do with this? And the gentleman says, well, this is an engine that runs off of horse manure. Mm-hmm. Horse manure. So everybody has like a look of disgust on their face. He puts the horse manure in there, and true to form, it all blows up in his face.
Yep, and then everybody's covered in shit.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that didn't go very well.
No.
So naturally, Boss Hogg is sitting over there, super confident, and as soon as the judge comes over to him, he starts going off on this tirade about how he's going to change the world, and he's got the best fuel, and blah blah blah. And he has his assistant pour the quote fuel, which we know is now water.
The contents of the jug.
Right. So he pours the water in there, tries to start the engine, doesn't fire at all, and the judge is like, yeah, okay, no, I don't have any more time. And then just at that point, Uncle Jesse walks in, and he's like, hey, you mind if I have a try at this? Pours the moonshine into an engine, fires right up.
Just first try, fires right up.
Right.
So the judge is all like, oh, that's awesome. What is this? It's like, oh, it's corn whiskey. Yeah, it's corn whiskey.
Corn whiskey. And
try some.
Yeah, and then you mentioned this, and I completely agree with this. The judge has this perfect form for drinking the whiskey straight out of the bottle.
So this jug, it's a fat jug that you probably a grown man would have trouble getting two hands completely wrapped around it. It's a
right.
big fat jug, and it comes up to the bottleneck. Comes up to a very, very skinny neck. And there is a handle on the neck of the jug that is probably wide enough to fit a single finger through.
Right.
So what the judge does is he hooks his finger through the handle. He flips the bottle around so the bottle is being held against the back of his hand, and he lifts up the jug and supports it on
his shoulder.
On his shoulder/forearm, and takes a drink directly from it. It's the
most impressive thing I've ever seen.
So smooth.
Yeah.
Smooth as hell.
The jug looked like it held, what do you think, 3 gallons?
Yeah, probably maybe like a gallon and a half, 2 gallons maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly more than a gallon of milk.
Oh, yeah. Bigger than a gallon of milk.
But that was so like it almost makes me want to go find a moonshine jar and try that.
Right?
But he's like, oh, this stuff's really good and blah blah blah. And then at that point, in walks Roxanne, also gun drawn again, and she's like, you're under arrest, blah blah blah. I think this is when she says she's ATF, but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, we have to find that out.
Yeah,
but girl, put your gun away.
I know. And
you're in a room full of nerds right now.
And not to mention, all kinds of alternative fuels are around. I mean, who knows? If your gun goes off, you could blow the whole place up.
You're standing right next to Jesse and the judge, who have the jug of
whiskey.
Yeah, or
fuel.
Obviously volatile fuel.
Right. But at any rate, so there's a little exchange there, and they find that Rosco is like, oh, well, you're under arrest for stealing my police car, because they stole Rosco's police car in order to get to the competition, and the Dukes wind up getting out of it on a technicality, because they're like, well, technically you arrested us for hauling water, so that was false arrest.
Is it a technicality?
I don't think so.
Or is it Rosco being too dumb to?
I think it's more plot putty. They're
just out-logicking him.
Yes.
But hang on. So Roxanne makes her claims and says, give me that whiskey. That's illegally made and illegally transported whiskey.
Right.
And the judge is like, no, this is the government property now. Jesse's like, all right, well, now it's government property, then I need my $20,000. And judge is like, well, we need to do feasibility tests and do this and that and the third before we give you your $20,000. And Jesse's like, what do you mean? It's not illegal to illegal to make it. It's illegal to transport it. You got to get the revenue officer drunk and blah blah blah. Oh, the hell with it! Throws up his hands and walk away.
So he's just walking away from $20,000.
Yeah. Rosco is then saying, well, he stole my police car. And then they like, nah, well, we just borrowed it. Here's your keys back. It's just, Rosco is so dumb. It's infuriating how dumb he is.
Yeah.
Like, you're a cop.
That's
you're
like
a cop.
That's like if you see a cop standing in like a mall, and you grab his gun and start running away, and then you stop and you give it back to him. Here you go. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just borrowing it.
Yeah,
I'm just borrowing your gun.
You're still going to jail for
Yes.
messing with a cop or whatever. So I mean, yeah, those guys got out of. They got their way out of something only because the person enforcing it, like we were talking about before, has zero credibility whatsoever.
So after this, Jesse and the Dukes go out into Jesse's Shine Runner, and they drive off. And Boss Hogg, I guess, recovers from his fit of defeat. Comes over and says, "Hey, why aren't you arresting them? They transported the whiskey here in the gas tank. That's why you couldn't find it." So then starts the car chase.
Right, and of course, being the Dukes of Hazzard, it's an epic car chase.
It's a pretty good car chase.
Over land, over dirt, through some water.
So there is the Dukes who are running. Rosco is chasing with Boss Hogg in the passenger seat.
Again, why is the local business tycoon palling around with the cop?
There's no reason for you to be in this car, Boss Hogg.
Right.
So Roxanne is chasing all the rest of them.
Right.
What was very funny to me was the cop car
Yeah.
had rebel plates on the front.
Right.
The rebel flag was on the front license plate of this cop car. Ridiculous.
Right.
So Roxanne goes to overtake the cop car, runs him off the road, flips the car. No fatalities, no blood, no injuries, no casualties, no nothing.
But the driver's door falls off the cop car.
Falls right off. The lights fall off. Boss Hogg, suit still stark white. No blood, no nothing, no dirt on it. It's being dragged out of the car.
Right. It's almost like he carries a spare suit with him and he just changes into it whenever he's going to be seen by the public.
I would. If I had that kind of wealth, I'd be...
And if all he did was wear white suits every day? Yeah. So they get out, and obviously, unscathed, no harm done to them. But of course, they just were in a car that flipped over and was dragged down a hill. So I mean, that's a little more plot putty for you,
right? So they go through the chase a bit more. Roxanne is gaining on the Dukes. Jesse makes some quips, and then he pulls out his special move. What's his special move, you ask?
I have no idea.
Driving through a barn.
Which apparently was the last thing he did, because then his car ran out of fuel.
He called it the barn shot. I'm going to give her the barn shot if she catches up to me. She catches up to him. He does the barn shot. He just knows where a barn is.
Right.
Veers off the road, drives right through this barn.
And it does absolutely nothing, because I think she drove right behind him through the barn.
Yeah, right.
So it was like, let's just destroy this barn for no reason whatsoever.
Barn falls down.
Let me do this secret move on you, which has no significance whatsoever except for messing up a barn.
Right.
Okay.
Barn falls down, and his car
runs out of gas.
It runs out of gas. They get out of the car, and she's like, "Oh, I got you." Pulls her gun out again.
Yep.
Like, right, they don't have guns.
And they're not going to be driving away because their car's out of gas.
What? Put your gun away.
Yeah.
So she comes around the corner. She's like, "I know you have the gas in the car." It's like, "Oh, we have no gas in the car. You've got no proof."
She opens the gas tank, inhales it, and then just like she did at the still earlier, passes out.
Passes right out into Bo's arms.
Yeah.
Bo's strong, masculine arms.
Right.
So the narration ends with, "So goes the legend of the whiskey runners."
Right.
Bo and Luke Duke.
I gotta say, I really liked having that narrator there. It was kind of cool, like a whole nother character just off screen.
He had some pretty funny one-liners.
Oh yeah.
When she passed out the first time in the woods, and Bo tried to give her mouth-to-mouth recreation.
Yeah.
She woke up and said, "You're under arrest."
Yeah.
And the narrator said, "Huh, what was it? His technique?" Yeah, he was. There were some funny ones in there. I liked the narrator. I think I was. I don't like the idea of a narrator coming in and out throughout the show, but I liked him. I really did.
He wasn't just a narrator though. I feel like he was a whole nother character.
He was
he was almost like a guy off just observing what was going on.
Yeah.
Off camera.
Now that I think about it, very similar to Arrested Development,
Okay.
The Arrested Development narrator kind of gives you a little bit of plot, a little bit of observation, some
Right.
humor to it. Also, I think the narrator was. I mean, not as funny as the one in Arrested Development, but
Sure.
was as relevant.
Right, I agree.
Had his own place in the episode.
Right. So on that note, that's pretty much the end of the episode here.
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier, the both of us, we've known about this show. We knew about it, but never really watched it growing up. It went, how many seasons ago? 7, 8 seasons? Maybe 9?
I have to look. Hold on. Dukes of Hazzard ran for 7 seasons.
7 seasons.
Yeah, it went from, say, 1979 to 1985, it looks like.
So I had a long run, and it was obviously very popular. They've done that remake with Johnny Knoxville and Sean William Scott and Jessica. What's her name?
Jessica Simpson? No,
Jessica Simpson. Yeah, she was Daisy Duke in that, wasn't she?
I think so. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in years.
I haven't seen it at all. So there's that.
I remember it was enjoyable. It was it was definitely enjoyable. I mean, certainly not as good as the original, but definitely enjoyable. So one thing I want to draw some attention to, there is a Dukes of Hazzard drinking game. And I wonder if you pair this with Moonshine, you'd probably be in for a pretty good night. But check this out. It's at, and we'll post a link on this. We'll post a link to this on our blog. But it's at the dukesofhazzard.net/drinking.html. But I'm just going to read a couple of these because this is hilarious. It says take one drink whenever, say, a car chase occurs, a car jumps something. Rosco says, I'm going to get them Duke boys, or some sort of variation of that. They mention the name Cooter. Rosco does his little laugh at the end of a sentence, like, that thing. So, I mean, like, you're already going to be taking a bunch of drinks, because I can think of a few of these that occurred in the episode we watched tonight. Or Boss Hogg tries to frame the Dukes for something they didn't do. Yeah, so definitely check this out, and again, we'll post a link to this on our blog here.
You can even pair some of these with some other drinking games. So what I like to do is I like to combine drinking games.
Oh, that's interesting.
One of my favorite ones is the Mustache game. The Mustache game comprises of those felt mustaches that you can buy at novelty shops, Spencer's Gifts, or wherever. That you take them off and you put them on the TV. And when everyone has their own mustache, and when a character's face lines up with the mustache, everyone else takes the drink. Whereas it's your mustache, you're safe from drinking. If you don't have those mustaches, what we used to do is take bits of Scotch tape and just draw your own mustache on it. Okay. Like the handlebar, the Hitler, right. The Groucho. You make your own mustache and you put the Scotch tape on the TV. And the Scotch tape doesn't really mark up most TVs, and right. It's easy to take off and put back on. Right. So there's that, and there's also the international drinking rules. Also, you can apply that to that as well.
Which is what?
No saying the words drink, drank, or drunk. There's no saying any other player's name. No pointing with the finger or the thumb. An empty glass can't be put down. It must be refilled first. There's a few of those things that you can combine, but I love the fact that there's a Dukes of Hazzard drinking game, and I am interested in playing this game or playing a variation of it, or combining with some of the other ones that I know about.
Absolutely. And just one thing I want to make sure to say, people, please, when you're doing this, make sure you're drinking responsibly. Drink with, in a safe environment. Don't drive anywhere if you're drinking a lot. Be safe. Have fun, enjoy yourself, but please be safe.
Of course.
That being said, we also want to cover our highlights and lowlights here, because this was such a great episode. They were definitely, I can certainly think of a couple for me here.
Highlights and lowlights.
That's right. So I'm going to say that, just being a car guy, my highlight was the car chase. I love watching car chases.
The car chase at the end there?
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, anytime there's skilled driving involved, I find it really entertaining. But it's always fun for me to see cars being used to their truest potential instead of just driving people from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. Because I drive to work from point A to point B. I drive to the grocery store and whatnot. I mean, cars are utilitarian, but I also I do enjoy driving a little fast sometimes, and whatever. I mean, or taking my Jeep off roading, climbing over rocks and stuff. I mean, doing things you wouldn't normally do with a car, seeing like what cars' true potentials are. So I really enjoy that element of things.
My highlights, my favorite part of this episode was, I could do one of two things. Well, yeah, okay. My highlight was Jesse getting one over on Rosco by hiding the shine in the gas tank of the car. Because my watch through of this episode, that's something that I thought about but wasn't really sure how they were going to pull it off. So the complexity of that plan. This is what I think. I think that the Duke boys were planning to get caught. We're planning to get totally caught by Roxanne Huntley.
Yeah.
But the way they played it off didn't make it seem that way. So
Right.
the culmination of their plan when it was executed to get them to the fair, the science fair, I liked that whole sequence of events.
Yeah.
And how it all played out.
Absolutely. So how about a low point for you? What would be low things?
My low point is bumbling characters, specifically Cooter and Sheriff Rosco. Mm-hmm. They are dumb to the point of distraction. They get in their own way. They really get in their own way. Cooter blowing up the vat that had the mash in it was a setback that wasn't necessary and alerted everybody to their location. Rosco being disrespectful and offensive to everybody and himself. And
his kind of like closed-mindedness and sort of looking for the, he kind of came off like an imbecile. He came off like an idiotic curmudgeon. Mm-hmm. Someone who just doesn't have a nice bone in his body unless he's getting something for himself. But even then, you'd have to tell him he was doing something for himself, because he wouldn't realize it.
Very well put. Yes.
I agree with that, and I don't want to just say that I'm going to share your low point. I agree with you. That I'm definitely going to say that's a low point for me as well. But I'm actually going to say the low point for me, and this is a little bit more general, I guess, but is when in these car chases they're doing things that are completely unrealistic. For example, in the very, very beginning, when the opening shot is the General Lee doing a leap over this thing. It pancakes flat on its chassis and just keeps on driving, and it's completely fine.
Yeah.
Except for like a broken brake light, which the car would be undrivable after a thing like that. I was watching an episode of Top Gear USA, and Adam Carolla did something a lot like what they did with the General Lee. He had this really big boat of an old car, like a late 70s, early 80s. I think it was a Cadillac Coupe de Ville or something, and the thing was like a mile long. And he jumped it over something. As soon as he landed, you saw the frame completely bent, and the car. I don't even think the car drove after that. Yet in these TV shows, the car just kind of speeds off into the sunset. Now I get that we're suspending disbelief and whatever, but the whole point of this podcast is to rip stuff apart. So that being the case,
stop ripping the General Lee apart.
The General Lee is a badass car.
Yeah.
It's a '69 Charger. It's a beautiful car. It's a badass looking car, but it doesn't matter what car we're talking about, whether it's the General Lee, whether we're talking about Kit from Knight Rider or whatever. When you leap over something like that, when you land, you can't keep driving.
Yeah, I was saying the Dukes stop ripping the General Lee apart, not to you.
Gotcha.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant, Dukes, stop ripping the General Lee apart. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you.
She's an old girl.
Yeah.
1969.
Treat her right.
Treat her right. That's right. But speaking of treating things right, treat yourself right by going to our website, tunein-nextweek.tumblr.com. Following us on Twitter at tunein_nextweek, SoundCloud tunein_nextweek, YouTube somehow. We are on YouTube. I'm working on getting that resolved, but I don't have a way to easily get you to us on YouTube. If you can find us, awesome. But we're working on that. Definitely reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Send us your feedback, your thoughts, your feelings, your disagreements, agree with us, whatever you want.
Feedback is definitely welcome.
Right.
Whatever you think, bad, good, indifferent.
Yep. Feedback is extremely valuable. We definitely want to hear from everybody, and we had some folks on Reddit chiming in on what we're doing, and again, we really do appreciate that, but we want to hear from everybody. We want to, just make sure we're entertaining you guys and make sure you're enjoying what you're hearing.
All right.
So that being the case, and that being said, only other thing I have to say is please, by all means, tune in next week, and we will see you next time.
Do it.
Never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw. Been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy. They wouldn't change if they could.